I moved to Ecatepec a few weeks ago. I was excited, but also scared. This was my first time living alone at 34. I filled my days with work, but my nights were quiet. I thought I could handle the loneliness. Then, one morning, I found something strange on my doorstep. It was a small wooden figurine. It looked well carved, almost like it was handmade. I didn't order anything, so it was a mystery. At first, I felt uneasy, but I took it inside anyway. I put it on my shelf and stared at it. It looked familiar, but I couldn't figure out why. I thought maybe it was just a coincidence. Days passed. Then, one night, I heard scratching noises. They came from the walls. I tried to ignore it. It's just the neighbors, I told myself. But the sounds came back every night. They wormed their way into my head. I couldn't sleep. Was I just tired? I couldn't shake the feeling. Then I started seeing shadows move in my apartment. Each time I looked, there was nothing there. I felt my heart racing. I brushed it off as stress. Life was new, and I was adjusting. But my mind kept playing tricks. One night, the air felt different. I was sitting in the dark, trying to work, when I caught a strange smell. It was damp and earthy, mixed with something rotten. It felt like it was coming from the figurine. I wanted to be rational. You're just being paranoid, I told myself, but I was scared. That's when the whispers started. They were soft at first. Luis. It sent chills through me. Maybe I was losing it. I looked around, but I saw nothing. Was it the figurine calling me? I thought of throwing it away, but I couldn't. There was something drawing me to it. Maybe fear, maybe curiosity. I sat in the darkness, staring at the figurine. My mind raced. Each whisper grew louder, calling my name, pulling me in. I didn't know what it wanted. After a few days, I felt the tension build. I felt I was losing control. The whispers were demanding now, and I was trapped in my tiny apartment. That night felt different. I turned off my computer and sat in silence. The apartment was dead quiet. Then I heard the scratching again, closer, almost like it was behind me. My heart was pounding now. I turned around, and there it was. The figurine had moved. It was off-center on the shelf, just enough for me to notice. I felt a wave of fear. I stood up, ready to confront it. I walked toward the figurine. What did I have to lose? I reached out to grab it. Suddenly, the lights flickered. I felt a rush of cold air on my face. The whispers turned into screams. "Luis, get out!" I stumbled back, heart racing, nearly tripping. My hands were shaking. I thought I was going crazy. I knew I had to get rid of it. But as I stood there, my feet felt planted. I didn't want to let go. Instead, I just stared. I didn't understand what I had invited into my life. I could feel it breathing, watching me. The truth loomed over me like a dark shadow. I didn't know how deep this went. I realized then that curiosity can lead you to places you can't return from. And those whispers were only the beginning. It felt like the night went on forever. I could still hear the echoes of the screams in my mind. Those frantic calls haunted me. "Get out!" It was a warning I didn't take seriously enough. I couldn't shake the feeling that I had opened a door to something dark. I spent the next day trying to occupy my mind. I went to work as usual, but my focus was shot. The figurine sat on the shelf, a sinister reminder of what I'd experienced. I hated myself for not tossing it in the trash. But what if it was important? What if it held some meaning I couldn't comprehend? Later that evening, I decided to take a walk. I needed air, maybe to clear my head. I stepped outside and felt freedom wash over me. But the moment I turned down the street, a wave of dread washed over me. My neighborhood felt alive in a way I hadn't noticed before. The shadows seemed longer, drawn out by the setting sun. The air was thick and heavy. As I strolled, I passed a small park and heard laughter. Kids played on swings, their joy a stark contrast to the turmoil inside me. I decided to sit on a nearby bench. The cool night breeze felt refreshing. I took a deep breath and tried to relax. Just as I was about to pull my phone out, I noticed someone staring at me. A woman stood a few yards away. She was dressed in dark, flowing clothing. Her hair fell over her face, obscuring her features. But something in her presence sent shivers down my spine. I met her gaze, and a chill shot through me. It was unsettling, almost like she could see right into my soul. Then she spoke, her voice low and haunting. "You've drawn her attention, haven't you?" I felt a knot tighten in my stomach. Who was she? How did she know about the figurine? "What do you mean?" I asked, trying to sound braver than I felt. Her shadow flickered oddly in the dim light. "They are always watching. La Bruja, she chooses." I didn't understand. Who was La Bruja? My heart raced. I wanted to run, to escape the instant fear that crept over me. But I was rooted in place, captivated by her words. Then she leaned closer, her voice barely above a whisper. "You need to return what is hers before it's too late." Just like that, she turned and walked away, merging into the night as if she was never there. I was stunned. I couldn't move. I felt like I was going to be sick. I hurried home, my thoughts spiraling in every direction. Return what is hers? Did she mean the figurine? I tried to recall every detail of our encounter, but it was gone, like smoke through my fingers. When I reached my apartment, I was almost too afraid to enter. I stepped inside reluctantly, and there it was, the figurine. It looked innocent, but its presence felt malevolent. That's when I saw it. The figurine had changed. Where before it had been untouched, now there were faint carvings on its surface, barely visible at first. I leaned closer to inspect it more carefully. An eerie glow seemed to pulse from within the wood, illuminating the carvings. Panic surged through me as I realized I needed to act fast. If I didn't return whatever La Bruja wanted, I couldn't shake the feeling that things would only get worse. But how? What did she truly want from me? I grabbed the figurine again, my heart pounding. The shadows in my apartment grew darker, and I felt the air thicken around me. Something was coming. Was it La Bruja? Then everything went dark. I jolted awake, gasping for breath, my heart racing. The darkness was thick and suffocating, as if it had a life of its own. I reached for the figurine, but my hands came up empty. Panic flooded through me. I shot up, searching the room. The figurine was gone. What the hell was happening? I stumbled toward the window, hoping the morning light would chase away the night's terror. But when I pulled the curtain aside, I was met with an unfamiliar sight. An old woman stood on the sidewalk below, her back turned to me. Her long gray hair flowed down to her waist, blending with the folds of her tattered dress. She seemed out of place in the otherwise ordinary street. I squinted, trying to get a better look. Suddenly, she turned her head slightly, and in that instant, I felt the same chill as before. It was her. A part of me recognized her. I backed away from the window, my pulse quickening. Had she come for the figurine? I needed to find it. I rifled through every box and bag, every shelf, but the figurine was nowhere to be found. Then a cold gust of wind swept through my apartment, sending shivers down my spine. I stood frozen, listening. A quiet rustle echoed from the hallway outside. I held my breath. Something, or someone, was moving. I crept cautiously toward the door, my heart pounding in my chest. As I reached for the knob, I remembered the woman's warning. You need to return what is hers. The moment the door creaked open, I felt a heavy presence envelop me. Shadows twisted unnaturally around the corners of the hallway. I stepped out, feeling the chill grip my skin. The last thing I wanted was to confront La Bruja. Then, from the corner of my eye, I saw movement. I turned, and there she was, the woman from the park. Her dark clothing swayed as she advanced toward me. "You've ignored my warning," she said, her tone eerily calm. "You must act." "What do you want from me?" I stammered, panic rising in my throat. "Your ignorance could lead to ruin. La Bruja is not to be trifled with," she said, her voice steady. "You need to find the figurine. It's the key." I took a step back, looking around for an escape. "But I don't know where it is." "Follow me," she said, tilting her head toward the stairs. There was urgency in her voice. I hesitated, mind racing with questions. But I knew if I didn't follow, I could lose whatever chance I had to set things right. Reluctantly, I descended the stairs after her. I kept glancing back to see if anyone else was around. Nothing but silence and shadows. We exited the building, and I found myself in the empty street. The woman began walking briskly, leading me toward an alleyway. "We don't have much time," she whispered, urgency threading through her tone. "Why are you helping me?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. "Because I know what's coming." She glanced back at me, and for the first time, I saw fear in her eyes. "And if it finds you first?" I didn't want to hear the rest. Each step felt like walking into a deeper abyss, but I had no choice. The shadows stretched long and twisted as we ventured into the dim light of the alley. And then it happened. One moment I was with her, and the next I was alone. I spun around, dread pooling in my stomach. I sensed she was gone, pulled into the waiting dark. Not only was I still figurineless, but now I was truly lost. I took a moment to regain my composure. The alley stretched out before me, lined with grimy brick walls and trash bins that bore witness to the city's neglect. I felt the cold seep into my bones. Alone now, I had to make a choice. I retraced our steps, hoping to find a clue, or perhaps the woman again. But the street was deserted, the tension thickening the air around me. My heart raced at the thought of La Bruja lurking just beyond the shadows. An unsettling feeling wrapped around me, wrapping tighter with every second. I hurried back to my apartment, praying I wouldn't run into anything sinister on the way. My mind was a chaotic jumble of what I had learned. La Bruja, her connection to the figurine, the mysterious woman's warnings. I had to piece it all together. When I entered the apartment, I scanned the room again, desperate for any sign of the figurine. Each box I threw open brought more frustration. I kicked a nearby chair, frustration boiling. "Where are you?" I cried out, feeling more helpless by the moment. That's when I noticed something different. A shadow loomed at the far end of the room. It flitted across the wall, fleeting yet unmistakable. I held my breath, eyes narrowing. There, partially hidden behind the bookshelf, was a small glimmer. I approached cautiously, my heartbeat pounding in my ears. I reached behind the old books and felt something smooth beneath my fingers. I pulled it out, my heart already racing with hope. When I turned it over, I gasped. It was the figurine, but it looked different than I remembered. Darker, almost as if it had absorbed the shadows around it. I felt a jolt of energy surge through me, an unseen force compelling me to hold on to it tightly. But before I could fully comprehend its significance, I heard it, a scratching sound from behind me. I whirled around, heart pounding. The air felt charged, thick with a presence that I couldn't shake off. I could barely see anything, the room dimming as the shadows seemed to stretch. "Who's there?" I called out, voice trembling. Silence. I held the figurine closer, feeling its weight grounding me. Then, that cold voice filled the room, echoing like a distant thunder. You took what was never yours to keep. I turned slowly, dread creeping into my mind. La Bruja emerged from the shadows, her eyes glowing with a wicked intensity. Return it, or face the consequences. Every instinct screamed to run, but my feet felt rooted to the floor. I was trapped, figurine in hand. My breath quickened. There was something unsettling about her presence. It was as if the darkness itself had come alive. "What's your plan?" I stammered, trying to sound brave. "What do you want?" "Your choice will determine everything," she said, stepping closer, the air growing colder. "Hand it over, or prepare for the darkness to consume you." An adrenaline rush coursed through me. I knew I couldn't give it up. Before I could think rationally, I felt a surge and thrust the figurine toward her. My plan was reckless, and I could feel the mistake creeping in. Then, everything went dark. I was thrust into a void, the darkness swallowing me whole. Panic surged through my veins. I couldn't see. I couldn't breathe. My mind raced as I flailed, searching for something solid. Then, clarity hit as I felt a pull, a counterforce drawing me closer to a flicker of light. With a sudden jolt, I tumbled from the blackness to the floor of my apartment. My heart hammered against my chest. I blinked, trying to adjust to the dim light, but I felt an eerie chill. A horrifying thought struck me. Had I given La Bruja the figurine? I shot to my feet, scanning the room for her. She wasn't there, but the air hung heavy, almost alive. I could feel shadows shifting at the corners of my vision, like whispers taunting me. I had to know what happened. I checked the bookshelf where I had found the figurine, but it was still there, clutched in my trembling hand. It felt warm now, pulsing softly. I wondered if it still belonged to La Bruja. But the whispers grew stronger, swirling around me. It was as if the figurine was awakening its power. Then the window rattled. I jumped, my pulse racing again. I staggered back, ready to flee, when I noticed a figure outside. My chest tightened. A woman in a dark shawl stood on the sidewalk. Her face was obscured, but I could feel her gaze piercing through the glass. "Help!" I shouted, hoping she would come to my aid. But instead, she raised her hand. A flash of recognition hit me hard. It was the mysterious woman from before. "You have to listen to me," I pleaded, but she simply shook her head. "It's not safe," she yelled. "You must understand what you've awakened." I felt a chill run up my spine. What had I awakened? The figurine pulsed in my hand, almost as if it resonated with my growing fear. I turned to face the room just as the walls began to darken again. My heart raced. That was when I heard it again, a scratching louder than before. My eyes darted around, looking for the source. And then I saw her, La Bruja. She stepped through the doorway, anger radiating off her like heat from a flame. The air crackled. "You dared to defy me?" She reached out, and I could feel a force trying to pull the figurine from my grasp. "No!" I shouted, gripping it tighter, a wild resolve sparking within me. "I'm not giving it to you." Her lips curled into a wicked smile. "Foolish child, you have no idea of the power you control." With an incantation that slithered through the room, the shadows thickened. I felt suffocated, visions of horrors flickering in my mind, the past, the present, and a future that seemed drenched in blood. As my breath quickened, my grip on the figurine wavered. Could I really stand against her? Desperation took hold. I didn't know what else to do. Just when it felt like all hope was lost, my instincts kicked in. In one swift motion, I threw the figurine to the ground. "Take it!" I yelled. "Just leave me alone!" The room erupted into chaos. The shadows lunged at La Bruja, enveloping her in a frenzy. But she wasn't done yet. "This isn't the end," she hissed as the darkness consumed her form. I was left in the aftermath, fear pulsing through me. I had done something, but was it enough? The air felt thick, oppressive. The lingering whisper of her voice echoed in my mind. This isn't over. I felt a weight lift, but I needed answers. The woman still stood outside, watching. I rushed to the window, desperate to learn more. "What did I do?" I asked frantically, as she stepped closer. Her eyes narrowed, bursting with urgency. "You freed something dark. Now you'll need to learn how to fight it." I stumbled back. This was just beginning. I had awakened something far worse than I ever imagined. The next morning, I felt the remnants of terror lingering in my chest. I couldn't shake the feeling that La Bruja had gone, but she would be back. I needed to understand more about her, about what I had unleashed. I took a deep breath. It was time to find answers, and I knew where I needed to start. I grabbed my phone and searched for anything related to La Bruja. After some digging, I found a local legend. People whispered about her powers and her past. Some said she was cursed, while others claimed she had been wronged by the very spirits she now commanded. But there was one thing everyone agreed on. She was dangerous. I decided to visit the local library. I needed books, old records, anything that could shed light on her history. As I drove through the town, unease settled in. The shadows seemed longer, the corners of my vision darker. I parked and stepped inside the library, the smell of musty pages greeting me like an old friend. I found a quiet corner and began my research. The more I read, the more uneasy I became. La Bruja was powerful. She thrived on fear, feeding on the anguish of those who crossed her. It was then that I saw something that made my stomach drop. A picture of the figurine I had thrown down. It was in a case, claimed as an artifact. Underneath it, a note read, "Beware the curse of the effigy. It must not be disturbed." I froze, realization crashing over me like a wave. I hadn't just angered La Bruja. I had broken an ancient seal. Panic crept back in. What if she returned for vengeance? I needed to leave. My hands shook as I gathered my things and bolted for the exit. Once outside, I felt an odd compulsion to look back. A shadow flickered behind the library, and I squinted against the sunlight. Then I saw her, the dark figure of La Bruja standing near the edge of the parking lot. My throat went dry. "Run!" a voice shouted. But I wasn't moving. My body was frozen in fear. I should have turned and fled, but I was rooted to the spot, staring directly at her. "Foolish child," she called, her words curling through the air like smoke. "You've opened paths left untouched. You have no idea what you've done." I wanted to scream, to curse back at her, but all that came out was a whimper. La Bruja extended her hand, and the air around me thickened, closing in like a vice. I stumbled backwards, desperate to escape, but she stepped forward. The shadows seemed to billow around her, wrapping her in darkness. "Face the consequences of your actions," she hissed, and suddenly everything fell. Then I heard it, a low growl, echoing from the shadows behind her. My heart raced as I backed away. Something was coming out of the blackness, an undefined mass looming larger and darker. That's when I felt it, a rush of wind against my back. I turned to see a figure approaching me, a wild-haired man with a weathered face and a desperate look in his eyes. "You need to run," he shouted. "It's going to find you." I didn't need to be told twice. I sprinted to my car and jumped inside, slamming the door just as I saw La Bruja reach for me. The growl echoed in the distance, and I could barely breathe. I fumbled the keys in the ignition and finally tore out of the parking lot. That frantic drive was only the beginning. I glanced in my rearview mirror and saw La Bruja, but she was different now. Shadows roared behind her, and I knew deep down I had only scratched the surface of the nightmare I unleashed. I needed help, and I couldn't wait any longer. As I turned the corner, I knew I couldn't face this alone. There was a real danger closing in, and the figures haunting me were far from done. Chapter 2. The Warning. I drove fast, my mind racing. Thoughts bounced around like ping-pong balls. I kept looking over my shoulder, half expecting the dark figure to appear right behind me. I made the decision to head to the only person I could think of who might know something, my grandmother. She was a source of folklore and old stories, someone who might help me make sense of the chaos. As I pulled into her driveway, I noticed the old oak tree swaying as if it didn't like the wind. The air had grown thick again, heavy with warnings. I stepped out and hurried to the door. My fists trembled as I knocked. "Abuela, it's me," I called out. No response. The silence intensified the dread pooling in my stomach. I opened the door, stepping inside. The familiar scent of herbs and spices wrapped around me, but today it felt wrong. The house was dark, curtains drawn tight. "Abuela," I shouted. Anxiety climbed higher. I cautiously moved through the rooms. That's when I saw her in the kitchen, sitting at the table, eyes closed as if in deep meditation. "Are you okay?" I asked, concern creeping into my voice. She opened her eyes slowly, looking straight at me. "You've come back," she said softly, her voice distant. "I felt your disturbance even before you arrived." "Disturbance? What do you mean?" I felt a chill run down my spine. I wasn't sure if this was about La Bruja or something else entirely. "Tell me everything," she insisted, her gaze intense. I quickly recounted the events, and as I spoke, I noticed the shadows in the room flickering, as if the light was being snuffed out. My heart raced at the thought that it might have something to do with me. When I finished, she stood up sharply. "You've stirred something sinister. The effigy holds more than just history. It contains a curse, and La Bruja is its keeper." "Cursed? What does she want?" Panic laced my words. "They say she seeks retribution. If you broke the seal, she won't be satisfied with mere scaring. You need to act quickly." Her voice trembled slightly, and I felt fear clenching around my chest again. Before I could ask what I needed to do, a loud crash sounded from the living room. My breath caught in my throat. I wanted to stay, to hear more, but I knew whatever was in there was here because of me. "What was that?" I asked, eyes wide. Abuela glanced towards the living room. "It's here. You need to hide." I backed away, my mind racing. I wanted to scream, to run out the door, but I was rooted to the spot. Just then, the lights flickered and snuffed out, and I could hear a low growl reverberate through the walls. Then everything went eerily quiet. My pulse thudded loudly in my ears. "I can't stay here. I have to find a way to stop her," I whispered desperately. "Use what you know," my grandmother urged, but I could feel the despair in her voice. "Trust in the old ways. But you must be careful. La Bruja will not let you go easily." That's when I heard it. A voice, familiar and soft, call out from the other side of the house. It sounded like my own voice, repeating, "Help me." I glanced at Abuela, fear pooling in my gut. We weren't alone. "Someone's in the house," I gasped, and the warning in her eyes echoed in my mind. I had to figure this out, but who was the voice calling for help? The answer felt closer and more horrifying than I expected. Before I could process my next move, the shadows shifted ominously around me. I knew La Bruja was here, and I needed to confront the darkness before it consumed me whole. Chapter 3: The Confrontation. I didn't have time to think. I rushed toward the living room, driven by instinct. Abuela's voice echoed in my ears, but I couldn't remember any specific advice. The low growl was now a creeping whisper, wrapping around me like mist. As I stepped into the living room, the remnants of what once was a cozy space loomed ominously. The furniture was overturned, and an eerie chill buzzed in the air. My breath hitched when I caught a glimpse of a shape just beyond the flickering candles. It was an outline that shifted and morphed, as though it were made of shadows themselves. "Show yourself!" I yelled, surprising myself with the force of my voice. The whisper stopped, replaced by silence that filled the room. Nothing happened. Every shadow felt alive, watching me, waiting. Then I noticed something on the ground. An old mirror lay broken, jagged shards catching the scant light. Part of me felt drawn to it. Maybe if I looked close enough, I'd uncover its secrets. But a primal sense told me that was the worst idea I could have. I stepped back brutally, remembering how Abuela spoke of mirrors in her stories. Portals to other realms, reflections of truths best left unseen. I couldn't shake the feeling that La Bruja was trying to lure me in with her tricks. "Please, just tell me what you want," I shouted again, desperation clawing at my throat. The air seemed to thicken, and the whispers resumed, forming words I couldn't quite make out. I felt a sudden pull toward the broken mirror, and that was when I saw her. In the reflection, La Bruja appeared, her black hair flowing like smoke, eyes cold and piercing. She smiled, but it was a twisted mockery, the kind that sent a shiver down my spine. "You've awakened me, child. You've taken what wasn't yours." I felt my heart race. "I didn't mean to. I don't want any trouble," I stammered, though I knew it was futile. Something about her presence suffocated me, and in that moment I understood Abuela's urgency. "Trouble has arrived," La Bruja said, her voice echoing from all corners of the room. Each word dripped with malice, sending a chill straight to my bones. "You must pay the price for your trespass, or all will suffer." A shudder gripped me. Could my family be in danger because of my actions? Was that the voice I'd heard earlier? Someone calling for help because of me? "Stop!" I shouted, suddenly fueled with a determination I didn't know I had. "You need to listen." Her expression changed then. Curiosity mixed with amusement danced across her features. "Listen? To what, little one?" "A bargain," I blurted out, surprising even myself. I remembered Abuela's stories of cleverness overcoming wickedness. "I will fix this. Just let me find a way." La Bruja leaned forward, as if considering my offer. I felt my stomach churn. Had I just made a deal with the devil? "You think bargaining will save you, but you know not the consequences of your words," she hissed, and suddenly the shadows surged, engulfing me in darkness. "Abuela!" I cried, reaching for anything to anchor me to reality. But the shadows pulled tighter, threatening to swallow me whole. In that moment, one thought burned through the fear. I would not go down alone. Then, just as quickly as it had begun, the shadows receded, and I found myself back in the living room. My grandmother stood beside me, a fierce fire in her eyes. "Run!" she yelled, but an invisible force held we still. I looked back to the mirror, and there La Bruja's laughter echoed, mocking our plight. "Now you'll see the true cost of your trespasses," she cooed. I had awakened something terrible, and it was just the beginning. couldn't move. My legs felt heavy, like they were stuck in quicksand. Abuela shouted again, and her fear pierced through the thick haze in my mind. "Run!" she cried, her voice urgent, shaking me out of my daze. I struggled to turn away from the mirror, but it felt like a magnet was holding me in place. La Bruja's laughter echoed in my ears, a chilling symphony that made my skin crawl. Then suddenly I felt a jolt, like the snapping of a string, and my feet obeyed. I stumbled back, my heart thundering in my chest. Abuela grabbed my arm, propelling me toward the kitchen. "Listen to me," she said, her grip firm. "La Bruja won't stop until she gets what she wants." "What does she want?" I gasped, panic rising. "I didn't take anything from her." "She wants your fear," Abuela spat, her expression fierce. "You must not show it. You have to be brave." But her words felt hollow. Bravery was the last thing on my mind. I fought to steady my breath as we raced into the kitchen, the familiar sounds of pots and pans suddenly foreign and unsettling. "Find something." Abuela rummaged through the drawers, her movements frantic. "We need protection, something to hold off her power." I glanced back toward the living room, where shadows twisted and wriggled. La Bruja's presence loomed, but I could feel the warmth of Abuela next to me, reminding me that I wasn't alone. That's when I spotted the old wooden crucifix hanging on the wall above the sink. Its surface was worn, but I knew it had been in our family for generations. "Abuela, the cross!" I exclaimed, pointing. She nodded, snatching it from the wall. This should work. A burst of hope ignited within me, but it was quickly snuffed out by a chilling gust that swept through the kitchen, rattling the windows. "Do you think you can keep me away?" La Bruja's voice floated in through the door, dark and echoing. "This is only the beginning." I felt my stomach twist as her words settled over us like a thick fog. "What do we do next?" I asked, my voice barely a whisper. "We confront her. We need to close the door to her world," Abuela said. "But we must be strong, even when she tries to break us." I nodded, though fear clawed at my insides. La Bruja's laughter still echoed, mingling with the wind outside. The shadows pressed against the walls, eager to invade. As we stepped back toward the living room, I noticed La Bruja's figure shift closer in the mirror, her eyes glinting with malice. Everything she did brought a wave of dread crashing down over me. Suddenly, the lights flickered, responding to her presence. "Hiding won't help you, little girl," she taunted. "You'll have to face the truth." Then something unexpected happened. A photo flew off the wall, shattering on the floor. The image in the broken frame showed my family together, all of us smiling. Each shard felt like a dagger to my heart. "Your happiness is fleeting, just like this," La Bruja hissed. Her power surged, and suddenly I remembered all of Abuela's stories. A figure like La Bruja could only be contained if we confronted the darkness she fed on. "Enough!" I shouted, rallying my courage. I stepped forward, the crucifix held high. "You won't take us!" The shadows hesitated, swirling and curling back. My heart raced as I felt an electric pulse of energy from the cross. La Bruja's laughter faltered, replaced with a snarl of fury. "Foolish child! You think a mere trinket can save you!" she screeched, her voice rising in pitch. That's when I saw it, a strange flicker of light cutting through the oppressive darkness surrounding her. It pulsed like a heartbeat, and I realized it was coming from the shards of the broken mirror, glinting in defiance. "Together!" I cried to Abuela. We needed to harness that light. We stepped closer, the cross shining in the dim room. But as we neared the mirror, a shadow of doubt crept into my mind. What if we were too late? What if La Bruja's darkness consumed everything we held dear? I took a deep breath. We had to try. That's when the ground shook, and everything went dark. Light pierced through the darkness like a blade, illuminating my apartment in a brilliant flash. I squinted against the glare, feeling the weight of fear lift just momentarily. Was it gone? The chaos had ended, the shadows dissipating into nothingness. I found myself back in my living room, breathless, but I couldn't shake the memory of La Bruja's laughter echoing in my ears. "Luis!" Abuela's voice pulled me away from the abyss of my thoughts. She stood near the wall, her eyes wide with a mix of relief and wariness. "Are you okay?" "I think," my voice faltered as I searched around. The figurine, dark and ominous, sat quietly on the table where I had left it. But there was no sign of the woman, no whispers of shadows, just a whiff of cold air rolling through the room. "It seems we did something, but at what cost?" Abuela said, her brow furrowed deeply. She looked to the window, where the remnants of the sunlight threatened to wane, casting long shadows across the floor. "La Bruja has been sent away for now, but she won't stay gone forever." "What do we do?" I asked, panic threading through my voice. "How do we make sure she doesn't come back?" Abuela paused, her gaze piercing mine, as if searching my very soul. "The darkness can't be banished completely. It leaves traces, and those traces remain in our hearts. She thrives on fear. When we allow doubt and fear to creep back in, she will find a way." There was a stillness in her words, a weight that sank deep within me. I didn't want to believe it, couldn't accept it. Forcing down the anxiety churning in my stomach, I took a breath. "But I can't just let her in again." "No," Abuela agreed, stepping toward me. "You must learn to confront the darkness, to understand your fears instead of allowing them to control you. There will always shadows, but they don't have to consume you." Then I remembered the woman I had seen in the park, her warnings still ringing true in my mind. What about her, the one who told me to return what was hers? Did she help us? My grandmother nodded slowly. She could be a part of this. Perhaps she understands the balance of light and dark. The true power lies not in whether we face the darkness, but how we do so. You must seek knowledge to understand what you are up against. I felt a restless energy at her words. How do I find her? Abuela stepped back, eyes alight. You need to pay attention. Look for her signs. Things don't end here. You've begun a journey. A heavy silence settled between us, yet deep down in my gut, I knew it wouldn't be easy. The shadows I had faced were far from finished. I clutched the wooden figurine, the familiar unease creeping back, and a chilling realization washed over me. Perhaps this was only the beginning of something much darker. Days turned into weeks, yet I couldn't shake the feeling that La Bruja was still watching. Each creak of floorboards, each whisper of the wind sent shivers down my spine. I moved through life with a cautious heart, knowing the weight of the fear lurking just outside my perception. Then, one evening, as dusk settled into the sky, casting everything in an ethereal glow, I noticed an unusual shadow darting down the street, a familiar silhouette, beckoning me from across the way. My heart raced. The woman? Was she truly back? I stood frozen, caught in the tumult of uncertainty. And before I could act, she turned and slipped into the depths of the gathering night, the darkness wrapping around her like a shroud. I took a hesitant step forward, my chest tightening, the pull of curiosity both thrilling and terrifying. I still think about it sometimes, when the shadows grow long and the air turns cold. The lingering questions haunt me. Was La Bruja truly gone? And who would I become in the balance of light and dark? But for now, all I can do is wait and prepare.